Welcome to Nuka Nights. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great time in the wasteland. If you want to support Nuka Nights, make sure to like this video, subscribe the channel and activate all alerts. This helps the YouTube algorithm to spread the video and grow the channel. In this video I want to explain all the details about the new legendary mods that will be available on 3rd September with the Milepost 0 update in the new legendary crafting system. Everything you need to know, all the ingredients and all usages, which means can it be used on armor, can it be used on power armor, can it be used on ranged weapons or only on melee weapons maybe. Let's check it out. I will go through all first star mods in alphabetical order, then all second star mods and all third star mods. There was already a 4th star announced for December, but this was not included in the current PTS, so we don't know the effects yet and we cannot say much about it. So this will be a topic for later. Now, before I get into the details, a quick explanation how to get the legendary mods. You get legendary mods by scrapping legendary items on any workbench. You can learn the plan by a chance of 1%, and you have a 1.5% chance to get a legendary mod for each star you scrap. If you scrap a 3-star weapon, you have 3 chances of 1.5% to get a legendary mod that you can use to mount it on a weapon. If you learned a plan, you can craft a legendary mod on a Tinker workbench with the ingredients I will explain. So let's start with anti-armor. Anti-armor is a weapon mod which can be applied to ranged weapons or also melee weapons. It requires 5 black titanium and 15 legendary modules. All first star legendary mods require 15 legendary modules. Once you mount it to a weapon, it grants you plus 50% armor penetration. Next is aristocrats. It requires 1 bubblehead caps and 15 legendary modules. It's a universal shared mod which can be applied to armor, power armor, ranged weapons and melee weapons. On armor it grants up to 20 energy resistance and damage resistance the higher your caps. Then it shows your current magnitude, which is a variable here. And on a weapon it gives you up to 50% damage based on caps you currently have. The plus MAG you can see here is a placeholder for your current personal bonus that will be displayed on the effects. By the way, the maximum bonus of plus 50% damage will be granted on 28k caps. Next is the legendary mod Assassins. Assassins is also available for armor, power armor, ranged weapons and melee weapons, and it gives you minus 15% damage from humans on armor and on weapons plus 50% damage to humans. On armor it's obviously per part, so you receive minus 75% less damage from humans when you wear a full set. The crafting ingredients are 1 liquid courage and 15 legendary modules. By the way, humans are players and also humans in the game, like Blood Eagles for example. To craft the Autostim legendary mod, you need 5 stim packs and 15 legendary modules. This mod is available on armor and power armor. It automatically uses stim pack when hit while health is 25% or less once every 60 seconds. Next is Berserker mod, which requires 5 psycho and 15 legendary modules. Damage increases up to plus 50% as damage resistance decreases. So the lower your damage resistance, the higher your damage. Maybe we need 5 psycho because you need to be a psycho to play this as a build. I don't know. Next is the Bloodied mod, which most of you should already know. The damage increases up to 95% as health decreases. You need 1 adrenaline reaction serum and 15 legendary modules, and the bloodied mod can be mounted to ranged and melee weapons. On a low health build, you can also play the bolstering legendary mod on armor, which grants up to 35 energy resistance and damage resistance the lower your health. You need 5 medics and 15 legendary modules to craft this mod. It can be mounted on armor and on power armor. The chameleon mod needs 1 chameleon serum and 15 legendary modules, and it works on armor and power armor. The effect makes you become invisible while sneaking and not moving. The cloaking mod requires 1 stealth boy and 15 legendary modules, and it works on armor and power armor. Being hit in melee causes the player to become invisible once every 30 seconds. The Executioner's mod requires 25 leather and 15 legendary modules and works on ranged and melee weapons. It grants up to 50% more damage when your target is below 40% health. The Exterminator's mod requires 1 blood bug proboscis and 1 stickwing barb, as well as 15 legendary modules. It can be mounted on armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapons. On armor it grants minus 15% damage from mirelurks and insects. On weapons plus 50% damage to mirelurks and insects. The Furious mod requires 1 Fury and 15 legendary modules. It can be mounted on ranged weapons and melee weapons. This mod grants plus 5% damage after each consecutive hit on the same target, up to plus 45%. You get the full 45% bonus damage after 9 hits. The Ghoul Slayer's mod requires 1 red shield and 15 legendary modules. It can be mounted on armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapons. On armor it grants minus 15% damage from ghouls. On weapons you get plus 50% damage to ghouls. The Gourmand's mod requires 1 vegetarian ham and 15 legendary modules. It can be mounted on ranged and melee weapons. Damage increases up to 24% as you fill your hunger and thirst meters. It's in the same bonus damage range as 2-shot and mutants. The Hunter's mod can be mounted on armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapons, and requires 1 Yaoguai hide and 15 legendary modules. On armor it grants minus 15% damage from animals. On weapons it grants you plus 50% damage to animals. The Instigating mod requires 5 whiskey, 15 legendary modules, and can be mounted on any ranged or melee weapon. It grants up to 100% damage against targets with full health, which means it's not the best choice against bosses. The Juggernaut mod requires 5 buff out, 15 legendary modules, and can be mounted on any ranged or melee weapon. The damage increases up to plus 25% as health increases. The Junkies mod requires 5 mentats and 15 legendary modules. Can be mounted on any ranged or melee weapon. Damage increases per addiction up to 50%. The Life-Saving mod only can be mounted on armor, not on power armor. It requires 5 Stimpak and 15 legendary modules to craft. When incapacitated, gain a 50% chance to revive yourself with a Stimpak once every 60 seconds. The Medic's effect is completely reworked and I tested it already on the PTS. I will put the link in the description. Attacks will heal friendly targets by 5% health. To craft this mod you need 1 Bobblehead medicine and 15 legendary modules. It can be used on any ranged or melee weapon. The Mutants mod need 10 asbestos and 15 legendary modules. Can be mounted on any armor, power armor, ranged or melee weapon. It grants plus 10 damage resistance and energy resistance while mutated on armor. On weapons, it increases the damage up to 25% as you gain mutations. It's 5% per mutation, and on 5 mutations you have the maximum of plus 25% damage. So mutant is in the same damage bonus category as also gourmand or two-shot, while two-shot lacks a lot of accuracy and I wouldn't recommend it for commando weapons. Mutant Slayers requires 1 super mutant head, 15 legendary modules, can be mounted on any armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapon, and on armor it grants minus 15% damage from super mutants, and on weapons plus 50% damage to super mutants. Nocturnal requires 10 nuclear material, 15 legendary modules, can be mounted on any armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapons, and on armor it grants plus 40 damage and energy resistance at night, and on weapons plus 50% damage at night. Overeaters requires 1 perfect bubblegum, 15 legendary modules. It can be mounted on armor or power armor. It increases the damage reduction up to 6% as you fill your hunger and thirst meters, which results in up to 30% damage reduction if you're using 5 parts. This is still the best legendary mod on power armor for all builds. On full health build it's also the best on normal armor. It's very easy to keep your hunger and thirst meters full with perfect bubblegum. The legendary quad mod requires 1 fusion core and 15 legendary modules. It can be mounted on any ranged weapons. It grants quad the ammo capacity and gives no damage bonus. Regenerating requires 1 healing factor serum and 15 legendary modules. Can be mounted on armor and power armor. It grants plus 0.5% heal rate. Stalkers requires 1 Calmax and 15 legendary modules and can be mounted on any ranged weapon. If not in combat, you get plus 100% VATS accuracy at plus 50% VATS action points cost. Suppressors requires 1 grounded serum, 15 legendary modules and can be mounted on any ranged or melee weapon. Reduce your target's damage output by 25% for 5 seconds. Troubleshooters requires 10 circuitry, 15 legendary modules and can be mounted on armor, power armor and ranged and melee weapons. On armor it grants minus 15% damage from robots, on weapons it grants plus 50% damage to robots. If you have a full set of Troubleshooters armor, this can be quite helpful in events like Encrypted or if you prepare a silo. Two-shot requires 20 lead and 15 legendary modules and can be mounted on ranged weapons. It grants plus 1 projectiles and results in plus 25% damage, minus 150% hipfire accuracy and plus 100% recoil. This means it's a quite bad choice for commando build, but it's okay to use on heavy weapons, and it's in the same damage bonus category as gourmands or mutants. The unyielding mod can be mounted on armor, not on power armor, and requires 5 Excel and 15 legendary modules to craft. Gain up to plus 3 to all special stats except endurance when health is low. This is the base for all bloodied builds. Vampires requires 10 blood packs and 15 legendary modules, can be mounted on ranged and melee weapons, and it restores 2% health over 2 seconds when you hit a target. Vanguards requires 5 blood packs and 15 legendary modules, can be mounted on armor and power armor. It grants up to 35 energy resistance and damage resistance the higher your health, so it's a possible choice for full health builds beside overeaters. Weightless requires 1 bird bone serum and 15 legendary modules and can only be crafted on armor. It reduces the weight by minus 90%. And the last first star legendary mod is Zealots. You need 10 ultrasight and 15 legendary modules to craft, and it can be mounted on armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapons. On armor it grants minus 15% damage to Scorched, and on weapons it grants you plus 50% damage to Scorched. That were all first star legendary mods you can craft, and now let's get through the second star legendary mods. The first second star legendary mod is Agility. It grants you plus 2 agility and can be mounted on armor and power armor. You need 1 bobblehead agility and 30 legendary modules to craft. These bonus mods are available for all available specials, and the 2-star legendary mods are available for armor, and the 3-star legendary mods are available for weapons. We'll get to that later. Antiseptic requires 10 disease cures and 30 legendary modules. It can be mounted on armor and power armor, and you gain plus 25% reduced disease chance from environmental hazards. To be honest, this is not very useful in practice. Bashes requires 25 concrete and 30 legendary modules and can be only mounted on ranged weapons. It grants plus 50% bash damage. Charisma is another special stat bonus, requires 1 bobblehead charisma, 30 legendary modules, and can be crafted on armor and power armor. It gives you plus 2 charisma. Crippling requires 5 black titanium and 30 legendary modules, can be crafted on ranged and melee weapons, and grants plus 50% limp damage, which is helpful for crippling the wings of the queen, for example, to make her land. Endurance requires 1 bobblehead endurance, 30 legendary modules, and can be crafted on armor and power armor. It grants plus 2 endurance and can be used, for example, to maximize your endurance to use the new Thirst Quencher perk. Explosive requires 1 bobblehead explosive and 30 legendary modules and can only be used on ranged weapons. Projectiles explode for plus 20% weapon damage. And from the update on 3rd September on, this mod can even be used on energy weapons. Not on flamers, but on most energy weapons. Fireproof requires 10 floater flamer pucksack, 30 legendary modules, and can be mounted on armor and power armor. It grants plus 25 fire resistance. Glutton requires 1 perfect bubblegum, 30 legendary modules, can be crafted on armor and power armor, and grants hunger and thirst grow 10% slower. Hardy requires 1 bobblehead explosive, 30 legendary modules, and can be mounted on armor and power armor. You receive 7% less explosion damage, which can be quite useful against volatile enemies in daily ops, for example. Hazmat requires 10 red eggs and 30 legendary modules, can be mounted on armor and power armor, and grants plus 25 radiation resistance. Heavy Hitters requires 25 concrete and 30 legendary modules, can be mounted only on melee weapons. It grants plus 40% power attack damage. If you want to mod an auto axe or a chainsaw or any auto melee, this is the 2nd star mod you need. Hitman's needs 10 fiber optics, 30 legendary modules, and can only be crafted on ranged weapons. You get plus 25% damage while aiming. Inertial requires 10 canned coffee and 30 legendary modules. You can craft it on ranged and melee weapons, and it replenishes 15 action points for each kill. Intelligence requires 1 bobblehead intelligence and 30 legendary modules. Can be crafted on armor and power armor. If you have this intelligence mod on your full armor set, you have plus 10 intelligence in total. That's 5 more intelligence than before. And additionally, you can also put intelligence on your weapon now. On weapons, it's a 3rd star mod, I will show that later. Last Shot requires 15 gunpowder and 30 legendary modules. Can be crafted on ranged weapons only. The last round in a magazine has a 25% chance to deal plus 100% damage. Luck requires 1 bubblehead luck and 30 legendary modules. Can be crafted on armor and power armor. You gain +2 luck. Perception requires 1 bobblehead perception and 30 legendary modules. Can be crafted also on armor and power armor. You get +2 perception. Poisonous requires 10 floater Gnesha Poxec, 30 legendary modules, and can be crafted on armor and power armor. It grants +25 poison resistance. Powered requires 10 canned coffee and 30 legendary modules. Can be crafted on armor and power armor. It gives you +5% action point regeneration. You can use the action points calculator on the Nuka website to find your best action points acceleration. Rapid requires 1 speed demon serum and 30 legendary modules. Can be mounted on ranged weapons and melee weapons. On ranged weapons you gain +25% weapon speed. On melee weapons you gain +40% weapon speed, which was swing speed before. Riposting requires 25 glass and 30 legendary modules. Can be mounted only on melee weapons. +50% melee damage reflection while blocking. Steady requires 3 orange mentats and 30 legendary modules. Can be mounted on melee weapons only. +25% melee damage while not moving. Strength requires 1 bubblehead strength and 30 legendary modules. Can be mounted on armor and power armor and grants +2 strength. Watts Enhanced requires 3 berry mentats and 30 legendary modules. Can only be mounted on ranged weapons and grants +50% chance to hit a target in Watts. Vital requires 1 Eagle Eyes serum and 30 legendary modules. Can be mounted on ranged and melee weapons. It grants +50% critical damage. I actually think this shouldn't be available on melee weapons because critical hits are barely usable on melee. Warming requires 10 floater freezer Poxec, 30 legendary modules, and can be mounted on armor and power armor. It grants +25 cryo resistance. That were all legendary 2nd star mods. Now let's get through all legendary 3rd star mods. Acrobats requires 1 marsupial serum and 60 legendary modules. Can be crafted only on armor, not on power armor. It reduces the fall damage by -50%, which can be useful when you're using a build without bird bones mutation, for example. Adamantium requires 1 twisted muscle serum, 60 legendary modules, and can only be crafted on armor. You receive 15% less limb damage. Agility requires 1 bubblehead agility, 60 legendary modules, and can be mounted on ranged and melee weapons. All special mods on weapons grant +3 of their special bonus, like +3 agility. Armskeeper requires 1 bubblehead small guns and 60 legendary modules. It can be mounted on armor and power armor. Weapon weights reduced by 20%. So if you wear 5 pieces of this, you get a 90% reduction of all weapons, because 90% is maximum weight reduction. Belted requires 25 lead and 60 legendary modules. Can be mounted on armor and power armor. The ammo weight is reduced by 20%, and if you wear 5 pieces, the maximum weight reduction is 90% again. Burning requires 15 floater flamer per sec, and 60 legendary modules. Can be mounted on armor and power armor. 5% chance to deal 12 fire damage per second for 3 to melee attackers. Cavaliers requires 10 oil, 60 legendary modules. Can be crafted on armor, power armor, and even on melee weapons. On armor it grants 75% chance to reduce damage by 15% while sprinting. On melee weapons it grants -15% Damage taken while blocking. Charisma requires 1 Bobblehead Charisma and 60 legendary modules, can be crafted on ranged and melee weapons, and grants +3 Charisma. Defenders requires 25 steel and 60 legendary modules, can be crafted on armor, power armor and melee weapons. On armor it grants -15% damage taken while blocking, and on melee weapons it's -40% damage taken while power attacking. Dissipating requires 10 red away and 60 legendary modules, can be crafted on armor and power armor. It grants plus 0.25% radiation damage recovery, which is something you do not want as a bloodied build. Divers requires 15 plastic and 60 legendary modules and can be crafted only on armor. It grants underwater breathing. It cannot be crafted on power armor because you can breathe underwater with power armor anyway. Doctors requires 1 Stimpack Super, 60 legendary modules and can be crafted on armor and power armor. Plus 5% effectiveness of Stimpaks Redaway and Redex. Durability requires 1 Bobblehead Repair and 60 legendary modules. It can be crafted on armor, power armor, ranged and melee weapons. It breaks 50% slower, which can be quite useful on weapons that break really fast, like the Auto Axe for example. Electrified requires 1 electrically charged serum and 60 legendary modules, can be crafted on armor and power armor. 5% chance to deal 12 energy damage per second for 3 to melee attackers. Endurance requires 1 Bobblehead Endurance, 60 legendary modules and can be mounted on ranged and melee weapons. So you get +3 endurance again, and if you want to maximize your endurance for the Thirst Quencher perk, you can use this on your weapon too. Frozen requires 15 floater freezer post sec, 60 legendary modules and can be mounted on armor and power armor. 5% chance to deal 12 cryo damage per second for 4 to melee attackers. Ghosts need 1 Stealth Boy and 60 legendary modules and can only be crafted on ranged weapons. 10% chance to cause the player to be invisible for 2 seconds when hitting a target. The Intelligence 3rd star mod requires 1 Bobblehead Intelligence and 60 legendary modules, can be mounted on any ranged or melee weapons and grants +3 intelligence. So this might be a good combination for double XP weekend in combination with a full intelligence armor. So you can remember, 3rd star mods with special bonus are for weapons and 2nd star mods with special bonus are for armor. Lightweight requires 10 cork and 60 legendary modules, can be crafted on any ranged or melee weapons. It reduces the weight of the item by 90%. This is what I'm aiming to mount on most of my heavy weapons, like the Holy Fire for example. Luck requires 1 Bobblehead Luck and 60 legendary modules, can be mounted on any ranged or melee weapon and grants +3 luck. Lucky also requires 1 Bobblehead Luck and 60 legendary modules and can also be mounted on any ranged or melee weapon, but it grants +15 bonus watts critical charge. Nimble requires 25 springs and 60 legendary modules and can only be crafted on ranged weapons, plus 100% faster movement speed while aiming. Pack Rats requires 1 Marsupial Serum and 60 legendary modules and can be crafted on armor and power armor. Junk item weights reduced by 20% per piece, so that's again a maximum of 90% weight reduction in total. Perception requires 1 Bobblehead Perception, 60 legendary modules and can be crafted on ranged or melee weapons. It grants +3 perception. Resilient requires 5 medex, 60 legendary modules and can only be mounted on ranged weapons. Plus 250 damage resistance while reloading. Safe Crackers requires 1 bobblehead lockpicking, 60 legendary modules and can be mounted on armor and power armor. It increases the size of the sweet spot while picking locks by 2. This is definitely one of the most useless 3rd star mods ever. Secret Agents require 1 bobblehead sneak, 60 legendary modules and can only be mounted on armor, not power armor. Plus 25% less noise while sneaking, plus 25% reduce detection chance. If you're playing an unyielding sneak commando build, normally it's enough to have 1 piece with this perk. That's already a very good sneak ability, because already your agility points give you a very good sneak ability. Sentinels needs 1 scaly skin serum and 60 legendary modules. Can be mounted on armor and power armor. 75% chance to reduce damage by 15% while not moving. This can be used on heavy gunner builds while standing and also while sneaking on a sneak commando build. Steadfast needs 5 ballistic fiber, 60 legendary modules and can only be crafted on ranged weapons. Plus 50 damage resistance while aiming. Strength needs 1 bubblehead strength, 60 legendary modules can be mounted on ranged and melee weapons, and it grants plus 3 strength. Also old plus 1 strength mods on your current melee weapons will be converted to plus 3 strength. Swift requires 1 speed demon serum, 60 legendary modules and can be mounted only on ranged weapons. It grants plus 15% reload speed. Through Hikers requires 10 purified water, 60 legendary modules and can be mounted on armor and power armor. Food, drink and chem weights reduced by 20%. This also applies per part of armor and is maxed at 90% weight reduction. You can also combine this with the True Hiker perk in agility. Toxic requires 15 floater Gnasher per sec, 60 legendary modules, can be mounted on armor and power armor. 5% chance to deal 12 poison damage per second for 7 to melee attackers. And the last 3rd star legendary mod is What's Optimized. You need 10 sugar and 60 legendary modules to craft, and you can mount it on ranged and melee weapons. Minus 25% action points cost. That were all 1st, 2nd and 3rd star legendary mods in detail. As I already mentioned, the 4th star was already announced for the December update, but is not currently included in the files. There are old 4th star effects, but those won't be used as Bethesda said already, so we have to wait for the new effects. That's all for this video. Make sure to check out nukanights.com. You will find all ongoing and upcoming events, current daily ops, new codes, current season progress, articles about the latest event rewards and topics, as well as some tools like an interactive action points calculator. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.